I'm Greg Borowski, Executive Editor of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and welcome to a special meeting of the Journal Sentinel Editorial Board. We're joined today by Police Chief Jeffrey Norman, who I'll introduce more formally in a minute. The editorial board meetings are a chance for the members of our staff to ask questions on behalf of the community, and we're fortunate to have the chief with us today. Our editorial board members who are joining us today are Chelsea Lewis and Aaron Richards. Also joining us are Ashley Luthern and David Clary, who are reporters. They are not part of the editorial board, but they have great questions because they cover the police and public safety in our community. So as I mentioned, our guest is Police Chief Jeffrey Norman. He's a lifelong Milwaukeean who joined the force in 1996. He was appointed acting chief in 2020, which was a very interesting year in the world, as we know, and named the permanent chief the next year. He was just appointed to another full year term in June, so congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for joining us.
Appreciate that.
I have the first question because I'm sitting in this chair and I get to ask the first question. So my question is, if you look around the situation in Milwaukee, violent crime is down, but homicides are up in place. Well, often in many other communities, homicides are down. When we hear from our readers, they're talking about concerns around reckless driving, police response times, guns on the street, youth and curfews, shootings on Water Street and other public places where people gather.
Right.
There are struggles to recruit police officers, all kinds of things going on.
Right.
You were just reappointed to a new term. So I guess my question is, if you were there, why would you have reappointed yourself to this role?
So first, I start off by saying thank you for having me here. Appreciate to see you all, and this is definitely an honor to be able to address your readers and your viewership in regards to what's going on for public safety in Milwaukee. When I look at it from a standpoint, if I was on the other side of the table, which I would say he's such a handsome and intelligent guy, if that wasn't my perception there, but because I still have drive and passion for this work. The challenge is real in regards to, you just alluded to how I started into this particular role. I'm a COVID-19 chief, 2020. If you look around nationally, there are very few of us left. The challenges of dealing with that, navigating uncharted waters, and being able to still stay at the helm, and at the end of just that, particular, pandemic, and still feel that there is a lot of work to do, and also that there is gas in the tank. There's accomplishments under the belt. One of the things that was talked about during my reappointment process was the boxes being checked off, meaning that those particular things that the Fire and Police Commission expected of this particular role to accomplish at the time of my permanency appointment, I believe that we have ticked those boxes off. More engagement with the community, violence being reduced, impact on reckless driving, addressing the Collins Agreement, and also hold ourselves accountable. And so with that particular, I would say a variety of successes, and I always say this, and I'm very clear about this, my success is not because of me. It's because of the team that I'm blessed with, from the executive level, from the command level, but also understanding that the real and true work is from the men and women of the Milwaukee Police Department who are out there on a daily basis. And so seeing that and knowing that there's an opportunity to continue with those successes, that I still feel the urgency, I still feel the commitment, and that seeing that our relationships with, whether it's our political members, community members, law enforcement members, is real and genuine. There is I would say a good thing to see what this particular new term opportunity is building off all of those successes and relationships.
Right, so you mentioned boxes being checked. What would you put, what's your number one box here that you feel like needs to be checked?
I think people want to work with us more. When you think about in regards to what the history of a department has been challenged with, is that it seemed like a lot of things that we're doing in the past were more singular rather than being collaborative. It's nice to be able to pick up the phone and somebody answer on the other side. And I believe that's because we are bringing our best foot forward to these particular relationships beyond just, again, law enforcement or the community or business, to the residents. Being out there, I've been blessed to be at a number of different national night outs and just seeing the robust engagement and the pleasure from our community and having these particular engagements. But as you see from the vision and mission of the Milwaukee Police Department, it's not by happenstance. These are not just, okay, we just kind of fell upon this. That's the strategic direction of this department, and hold myself and everyone else under me accountable to that vision and mission.
All right, we'll turn it over to David here for the first question. Sure. The first real question. This was a warm-up.
I saw you was trying to build rapport a little bit earlier, talk about things. I did right. That's okay.
We wanted to talk to you about reckless driving. There's been, over the last 3 years, some minor improvements each year. It looks like the number of incidents. This year we're seeing deaths and crashes down a decent amount as well. What's working for you guys in addressing that, and what isn't working?
So just be ready for this answer to be at almost any part of the questioning here. The collaborations are real. Again, enforcement is absolutely necessary. Visibility is absolutely necessary from the police department. That's our role. When we talk about law enforcement, we are enforcers of the law. But that's not the only thing. Being able to lean into all the other collaborative efforts, Vision Zero, where you have that, putting forth efforts from a communication, working with the community about information, working with Department of Public Works. Again, redesigning streets where you are really making them pedestrian friendly, understanding that these are opportunities to have vehicles slow down. I believe that this collaborative effort between, again, the enforcement aspect of it, the redesigning aspect of it, but also the educational aspect of it. You see the signs out there. My partner, I always say, my brother from another mother, Aaron Lipsky, put out signs in front of the fire stations in regards to slow down. These are things that are really impactful. It has a multi-faceted, response to what we're seeing, and I believe you start to see. I think sometimes because we're kind of a microwave society, we think pop a dinner in, come out 30 seconds, it's done. We didn't get to where we're at overnight, and we're not going to get to where we need to be at overnight. Do we still have more work to do? Absolutely. We had to talk to our young. Our youth, especially when we talk about, it's not just teenagers, young adults. And sometimes we got to talk to ourselves. Too often we want to point fingers at everyone else saying, oh, they're driving reckless, they're driving. I've stopped grandmothers, I've stopped delivery drivers. There is a opportunity for us all to kind of look at ourselves. Cars are quieter, they are more powerful. We need to understand that we have to not only expect it from others, but also model it yourselves in regards to behaviors. And it's not just people who live in the city. There's people who come inside the city who also model that behavior, which is not a good role model, because anything does not go in Milwaukee. I can guarantee that. And so we continue to lean into the work, continue to be collaborative, understand that, we never should be happy with, okay, we have half or 20% reduction. I've always said this for all type of enforcement of any particular violations or crimes. I want zero. That's always been the North Star for me in regards to what we should do for impacting our community.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you too about pursuits. Obviously after last night there was a police pursuit that ended with the person being pursued, crashing and dying. We've seen other pursuits in the last month have people die at the end of them as well. Is your vehicle pursuit policy right now working as intended? Is it being effective?
So I will say this, it's always sad to see those outcomes in regards to these unfortunate situations. But we also need to understand that there was reckless driving involved. And there's always a level of dangerousness, whether we pursue or not, for individuals engaging in these behaviors. The public spoke before this term of mine in regards to what they wanted to see. And so we are always examining what our policies are, why we're engaging. There's a pretty rigorous oversight, because it is important for us that when we do cross the line of what we're doing during a pursuit, Accountability is real. Again, we talked about that as part of our command staff expectations. We post on our website those who cross the line in regards to not following due regard rules, or again, doing things that are dangerous in regards to the particular pursuits. The balancing act is real. It's always a understanding, should you or shouldn't you? There's robust oversight from supervisors, but what I like, especially some of the data that we get back, is officers understand the responsibility of self-canceling, that they are canceling themselves when it gets a little bit too outrageous or there's challenges. Can we improve? Absolutely. I believe that there is always a look at, opportunities of technology, whatnot, so that we can, utilize safer practices in regards to this. But the unfortunate thing is there's still an expectation in our community to engage, to impact, to hold people accountable. Many of our pursuits end safely. Many of our pursuits, people are in custody. Many of our pursuits, there are individuals being held accountable for their behavior.
What would you say, I'm thinking now of the rideshare driver, a bystander that was killed. What would you say to the family of that loved one to kind of help explain, or how would you talk to them about what happened?
First is always having the level of compassion and empathy that, a lost loved one is a lost loved one. No matter what the incident is. It's not just for, someone who was a victim of a reckless driving, homicides. I believe that we should have compassion. If you do not possess compassion anymore in this profession, you don't need to belong in that. And so it is always, that level of empathy that you show, that you are, see them, you express that, and, look at it from the standpoint of, we should, and we always do look at our particular incidents with a scrutiny of saying, was there anything that we could have done better or done differently? But I want to make sure that we level set this conversation here. We got individuals who are not abiding by the law. So when we start to talk about law enforcement, we're almost damn if you do, damn if you don't. I'm going to say that. You don't engage, now you're letting lawlessness run roughshod. You do engage, well, it's not enough. And so we make sure that we try to be thoughtful. I know that our policy really reduces the world of what's allowable for pursuits. And for the most part, the only thing that's below a felony is reckless driving. Everything else is felony related. And so it's just trying to be mindful, but community engagement also helps us allow us to know what the public wants. They're still demanding this particular type of enforcement. And this is something where, as we as public servants, as long as it's not legal or immoral, we shall do.
All right, Ashley, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Chief, staffing has been a concern for a while. It's certainly been in headlines recently. The department has about 1,500 sworn members, is that right?
A little bit over, but yes.
Is that enough to keep the public safe?
So I always say this, it's never enough. And I'll get and take as many as you would give me. But almost 30 years on this particular project, I don't know if we ever been to a staffing level that anybody found acceptable. When it comes to the work that we do, I believe that the constant refrain is more officers, more officers. And while I'll take as many as I am allowed to get, I don't control that. I am still beholden to the Common Council and what is allowed for the authorized budget under the mayor. But I do understand that no matter what our staffing is, we will still be responsive, we'll still engage. This patch to the city of Milwaukee, and as long as you carry this patch, no matter where you work out of a district, you are still responsible for the safety of the city of Milwaukee. When I came on the job over almost 30 years ago, I went to other districts to help out. Never had an attitude about it, never felt bad about it, because I understood that I am helping colleagues and understand that I might have a number, but I'm a city of Milwaukee employee. We have to get out of that silo mentality. I see the city of Milwaukee as one big district. Same thing if you were at Glendale, Wauwatosa. We just happen to have places where you come out of that building from the efficiency and effectiveness of coming out somewhere on the south side, north side. But as long as there's a need and you have someone working, you are never alone.
So residents have said they want more visible police presence in a lot of ways. They often talk about slow response times. Apparently, even some Republican state lawmakers think everyone, including you, should be out on patrol these days. Could you help the public understand how quickly those resources might be used up? So, for example, on any given day, how many folks are on some sort of medical or military leave that's, out of commission? What percent are on patrol to a district? What percent are roughly, doing detective work, that kind of thing, just to help the public understand. And then what does the response of something like a shooting, how does that take resources?
Well, I think for that question, this is a very complicated. I know that we are in line with a lot of national best practices and response times. I know with the transformation from what was Technical Communications Division, or TCD, now DEC, Department of Emergency Communications, refutes a lot of, this sort of slow response times. And I get it. I always say this, people's perceptions are reality. I will never argue with someone about what they feel. But when you look at numbers, that is a starting point of what this discussion looks like so that we can level set those who say that, our city's out of control and violence off the chain. And there is, importance in regards to understanding that numbers are numbers, and that helps us have a, more realistic conversation about what we see and what we work off of as leaders or as an institution. But any given day, so I know over the course of the year, we have what's called a 55% stash ratio in regards to what the staffing is for that, but our numbers are higher during the summertime because of cost of service. But what that means is that basically we are ensuring that there is a certain level of staffing at our districts and ensuring that we are maintaining what we can in regards to that particular level of service that's necessary for our particular patrol districts. But things come into play that affects that. People out on the Family Medical Leave Act, which is a federal act that, if you have a, medical substantiation, we must allow you have that time off. If someone calls in sick, if we have a number of different needs, sometimes, when you have somebody in custody and they're hurt, they're harmed, they're in the hospital. And because they are hurt and harmed and, maybe an accident or whatnot, you have to have a hospital guard on it. So there's needs that comes from our respective resources to satisfy those overall staffing numbers. But that's where we start to look at what else can we use to help out in regards to if there is a need for a particular area or a particular district. And expectation is for our districts to work with each other. As a former, what I would call shift commander, being a lieutenant, means getting on the phone. Hey, I have 3 hospital guards. Can you loan an officer over here to help me out because we still have response times and calls for service to take care of. And that expectation has been out there and is, always a, juggling act in regards to that, you got to move resources around. But that's just the nature of the beast of urban policing, nature of the beast of that we have multifaceted, complex needs. And we ensure that we are making sure that we are being able to move our resources around when we have those needs as appropriately as best as possible.
All right, Aaron.
Hi. There was just a respected national analysis, a mid-year report on violent crime in 30 major cities, tracked an overall 17% reduction in homicides in those 30 cities. Milwaukee was one of the 5 that had an increase. Mm-hmm. We recognize some similarities in the cities that did have a decrease, places like Buffalo, Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago. Mm-hmm. Could you name just 1 or 2 things from any of those cities that Milwaukee could either try here or strengthen here to similarly lower the homicide rate in the ways that they have?
Well, that's hard when you talk about in regards to these cities have different state laws and different ways of operating.
Well, we can change state law. What would need to be changed?
Well, not us.
Collectively.
So when you talk about Buffalo, that's in the state of New York, right?
Yes.
They have pretty rigorous firearm laws. We have a problem in our particular city in regards to guns being taken out of cars. Mm-hmm. It's not illegal to leave your gun unattended. It's not illegal to not properly secure. Those are, well, I think, low-hanging fruit. But that's not for me to talk about, how to address that from a law standpoint.
No, I
But
get
it's
that,
about
but
talking
I
about in regards
appreciate
to understanding.
what would
We
have
see
to
what the data is, because part of our homicide challenge, and let's level set this conversation, we might be over, but we're not like it's huge in regards to, and don't get me wrong, let me say this, one is too many, absolutely. But let's look at what the data is showing you about who is doing and how. We got kids out here with firearms. They're not going to your local stores. They're not going to, someone else's place. They're stealing them out of cars, stealing them out of homes. They're being unsecured. And when we look at our data, especially when we talk about homicides, 65% of the homicides are happening inside residences. So again, when we talk about law enforcement, I get it, we have a role in it. But our homicide clearance is over like almost 80%. So we're catching people. But I like to be able to say, what can we do to prevent?
Well, there's that, but there's still, so could you give me one other example that doesn't involve changing gun law, which we know is a bit of a sticky situation here and everywhere else? What is one other thing, like Baltimore, pretty similar to us, their education system's pretty similar to us. What have they done anything that you think could be implemented here or strengthened here in terms of lowering homicide rates?
They're doing the same thing we're doing. The big thing that we can always support and help out with is what's called the CVI work, but we're doing that too. So that's the, violence intervention work, community violence intervention. Enhancing and supporting work where you're, again, being more, again, robust in regards to your prevention. It's always nice to be able to clear a case, but I tell my team, I don't like clearing cases because I like to prevent it first. I don't want to see it happen. So when we talk about what they can do, there's very little the holy grail of, crime prevention out there. There's nothing, there's no chalice out there you can drink from and say, this is it. What we do is we really do work with each other. I know all of the major city chiefs out there. I know the chief of Baltimore. I know the chief of Buffalo. And it is important for us to continue to collaborate and look at things. But I will say that, for us, and when, Greg was asking me about what does that next 4 years look like, putting more effort on how we can work with prevention, work with those who are putting this type of effort into, our youth. There is also, effort we can do for families, because youths are the reflection of, who is raising them or dealing with them. And so there is a lot of great opportunities within our community. I don't believe that we're doing anything more or less than any other city. It's just that we need to ensure that our youth and our young adults are having, again, substantive programming for them.
Well, this is actually coming around.
Okay,
Unfortunately, this is jumping ahead, but this all goes on my
You asked me the question, but so I'm going to answer it.
But this is a critical connection. There's a lot of evidence that youth programming is, not only was it weak before, but thanks to the federal budget cuts, a lot of the programming is going away. COA, less YMCA programming. I understand the broad sentiment of community support and community collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do from your position to actually stimulate? You can't create money out of thin air,
right?
But what can you do from this role to stimulate partnerships, to be a force for actually having that action happen and not just talk about broad strokes?
So I can say this much: I control only MPD, the Milwaukee Police Department.
So tell me what you can do.
Under my leadership, the people who work for MPD are engaged in all those sectors. What we can do is encourage, I can advocate, but you can't lead a horse to the water and make the horse drink when it's outside of our organization. So being part of these conversations, absolutely. And you see me out there. I'm part of a lot of different organizations. I'm part of different boards. But when it comes down to that level of accountability, all I can say is that our people are part of these conversations. We work with OCWS, or the Office of Community Wellness and Safety. We work in the spaces in regards to UNCOM, the United Community of Neighborhoods. We are out there being part of these conversations, being part of this work. Our respective districts are part of this work. And it's important for us to be able to say that we are here to help with this lift, but understand that we don't own that lift because, again, our prime directive is law enforcement. We are part of efforts, but we're not that effort.
Let me ask one question to tie it back to one thing you said earlier, which was that if you would take as many officers as the budget, the mayor, the commission, whoever would give you, now, would having more officers bring down the homicide rate? Or how would you deploy them in order to bring down the homicide rate?
So,
We're hypothetical, right? You got as many officers as you want. What would you do with them?
So our homicide rate is 6% over right now, Greg. So when we talk about this, we're not talking in the ways of this 30 or 40 or 50%. It's slightly above where we were at last year. So right now we're at 89 versus what it was, 85. So with that, or 90 versus 85. So with that, we're seeing certain opportunities right now, especially in regards to, you have a situation where you have a youth in a home with 3 guns, smoking weed, drinking. So our part in this conversation is, I'm telling you, community, this is what's going on. Our part of this conversation is that there is transparency about some of the challenges we have. Unless you want us to go inside homes and say what you're doing with your family here, we have opportunities here where, what are we doing as a community to address this? A mother who takes her son to confront her daughter over a Facebook post using a gun that this 15-year-old never should have had, shoots his sister, and when we ask him, why did you do it? He says, so what? So when we talk about this, let's have a very honest conversation in regards to why those numbers look like those numbers. And believe me, we own being a part of this. We couldn't have an 80% clearance rate if we're not part of this. You can't sit there and say that there is, just yesterday we had another homicide. It's clear today. Clear today. So we have to have a further discussion about what are the other opportunities in regards to why our individuals feel that this is an appropriate response to conflict, to disagreements, and using firearms as that medium to resolve it. And so these are our responsibility from the work that we do, what we call intelligence, is to pass it on to various partners and say, how can we work together to impact it in a way that has meaning and is sustainable, is not a one-hit wonder? Because yes, we're out there working in many different circles, but we're part of those conversations. They don't work for MPD because it'd be a different conversation. But with the officers, we still do need officers to do sworn things. You don't send out someone who is, a community service officer to arrest a homicide suspect. You send out a sworn officer. So when you talk about what will these individuals will do, they'll be investigating, because that's a sworn officer. Yes, a detective investigating, because you can only bring a case to the DA under a sworn officer's ability, or to go out there, as many men and women Milwaukee Police Department do, day in, day out, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, holidays included, of working out there to ensure that we are going to be vigilant and also aggressive about making sure that those who bring harm will be held accountable.
Chelsea.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit.
Yes.
It's no secret that federal immigration enforcement is ramping up across the country.
Yes.
And we have seen that here in Milwaukee, with ICE agents trying to detain a sexual assault subject before he could stand trial, an undocumented man being detained over a phony threat letter to the president, which was actually a plot to stop him from testifying.
Right.
So my question is, what impact has federal immigration action had on public safety in Milwaukee in general and on your officers' ability to do their jobs?
So I can only talk anecdotal, and this is not like we had any particular type of study or research. I can hear some of the commentary coming from our public in regards to feeling, can you trust law enforcement, operating in the space of, is this, an immigration enforcement type activity, or is this actually, some other particular work within the federal departments? Because HSI or Homeland Security does more than just immigration enforcement. So the team and I and a lot of our, respective officers have to do a lot of communication in regards to that level setting when they see certain activities. Was it immigration or was it something else? Like one time we had a situation where HSI was enforcing for counterfeit in regards to some particular products. And, we have to do our outreach. We have to continue to make sure that we are reassuring, what is going on, being communicative. It has been a challenge, but I will say that some of that particular activity has lessened down, but, we still are vigilant in regards to making sure that we are communicative, connected to our community partners, and making sure that we're able to, talk through some of those challenges. We recently had put out a social media or just a communication about what officer looked like, to remind, the uniform. We did it in Spanish and English, just because we understand that some of those concerns. So is it challenging? Absolutely. And we continue to be part of these conversations. So how we can do better. We know we do still have a standard operating procedure that we, follow, abide by. So it's just making sure that we have, again, constant communication, and we can't foresee every particular type of challenge or problem, but we're willing to meet at the table to talk about it and see what kind of solutions we can come out of that.
Yeah. And I know it's MPD policy to not ask about someone's status in this country, but do you think still that these federal actions maybe are preventing people? You talk a lot about community engagement and working with the community, but do you think they are maybe preventing people from coming forward and working with you more because they are afraid of these actions?
So again, not having any particular, full data, but I can see how that can be. I believe that there is those challenges of, examples not only, around our Midwest, but nationally that can, unfortunately affect people's perceptions. And it does, make it more challenging in regards to having conversations. But I will say that as a department, we show up in those spaces. We continue to have those conversations. There's an expectation for our staff, meaning the leadership, to be part of these conversations. And all we can do is continue to, see our community, ask for, again, how we can better support and what we can do, and have that feedback loop in regards to, if there's concerns, let's talk it out.
How could someone talk it out? Like, average Joe living in somewhere wants to talk to you.
So I will say that there is so many different opportunities beyond, we have crime and safety meetings. We have town halls. There are a number of individuals within our Milwaukee community who are also supportive of amplifying those voices. I don't believe there is any lack of a particular resource, but you just can't wait for somebody to come to you. There are individuals out there who are on this work every day. And so I think it's important that, to seek, and if you want to start, asking, again, your local, district or whatever about who's working in what spaces, because we all have community partners that we work with and know. And it's important that, it's, meet us halfway. I do say that it's important for us to both understand our shared responsibility in regards to this particular work.
As we shift around, I just want to ask one additional question. As someone who, you're well respected in law enforcement, you think about how the system works and all the strategies and things. Do you think and this is a topic out there that people are talking about, do you think it's right that ICE agents or others wear masks and things when they're conducting arrests?
Oh, I'll say this much. Our people don't do it. So it's important to understand that, law enforcement, especially that you have federal, state, local, you have all different type of, responsibilities. We're not a national, particular type of entity. I know that, we have to be sensitive in regards to perceptions. We had the situation in Memphis, and my team got mad at me because I was like, we're not wearing hoodies and being out there in black hoodies. I think we have to be reflective of, when we are working for trust, if there are actions that we're doing that will harm the trust, we need to be sensitive to that and find ways to, modify behaviors, respond. But I do say that, for the most part, I really believe in wearing this uniform as much as we can. That helps in regards to whatever our activities are, because we see it so much in emergencies and in crisis, that it's good to see it at a national night out or at a crime and safety meeting where there is, the interaction at a human level, where it's not, in emotionally charged situation. So it is a challenge in regards. That's why we had to put out, a reminder to our public, which you would think you wouldn't have to, especially this uniform been around since 1855, but it is important to say we're sensitive. And as I sit amongst the media, you got to fight against misinformation. We know that so much is out there for people considered to be news, and it's unfortunate that there are people who are bent on doing more agitation rather than objective or being that responsible objective news source. And so just navigating a lot of different challenges as we are putting forth public safety in the 21st century.
All right, David.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you about facial recognition. Obviously, your administration has expressed interest in acquiring it. Since that announcement's come forward, though, there's been almost virtually pushback at each level. Alderpersons push back against it. A few fire and police commissioners at public meetings, during public comment.
Yeah.
Are you still interested in pursuing it after that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and why, despite the pushback?
To address hypotheticals or to address what is, I would say, speculative versus what's known. So what's speculative is it'll be abused. What's speculative is that there is going to be other individuals using this. But what's known is sexual assaults out there in our community, homicides out there in our community, robberies out there in our community. I don't know how many examples we have to show to our public in regards to what is your level of tolerance? How many is too many? We have individuals who are preying on our community. Wouldn't you want to use any tool to be able to interrupt that? What does it take to feel that level of impact, that harm? I don't want no one harmed. We've had individuals who are repeat sexual assault suspects praying that we use facial recognition to impact and impede that. Individuals who are doing carjackings. This is violent crime. We're not talking about facial recognition to go after somebody who stole a bike or someone who broke into a vending machine, took quarters. We're talking about real, serious, tangible crime. How many examples do we need to know that basically this is a useful tool? Such as this firearms a tool, as our uniforms a tool, our vehicles are tools. What's important is, what are the bumper rails? What's the rules of engagement in regards to this particular work? And so as a executive leader of a large department, I need to advocate for the particular tools that we're using. And I would think that we'll get a little bit of a kudos saying, you spoke up and said, we could have just started using it. But we want to get that feedback. We're not afraid of feedback. We're not afraid of that dialogue. And we're saying, help us create the bumper rails. We're not afraid of that conversation. But to just simply say no, tell that to the next victim then. Because what's going to have to happen for those who say this, they're going to have to be able to give an explanation of why, when we have the ability to interrupt, impact violent crime. Again, I'm not saying this is for use for bicycles being stolen. That we have the chance and we have tangible examples, but because of what someone is afraid of, and I still don't believe our entire public believes this,
let me ask you a question, and then we'll keep it rolling around on
Sure.
that. So if there wasn't that pushback and you could have that today, how quickly could you implement the facial recognition things, and what would you expect? How quickly could people see, the impact of it?
So the honesty of this is that we are using it from our partners, but I tell people, like the neighbor that you have who comes over and borrow sugar every so often, they say, buy your own sugar. Stop using my products here when you, especially what we have in our city of dealing with day-to-day issues. So we have used it, and there's been examples. I mean, Google it, whatever you want, in regards to seeing the examples that's been shown through your media counterparts of what and how and when those were used, because we don't own or use a product ourselves. We still have ability to go through others to help us out, because it's still unacceptable to have someone who took someone's life the freedom to walk our community freely. Unacceptable. Unacceptable if someone who involved in a carjacking is allowed to be able to walk and drive around our community freely. So if there's a tool that we can use to interrupt so that my daughter who lives in this city drives a car, my wife who lives in this city and drives a car doesn't have to be that second victim, I absolutely, unapologetically will use it.
Yep. All right, let's continue our second pass here. Ashley.
Okay. Chief, the department's been through a lot. Officers have been through a lot, and there was the tragic loss of Officer Corder, and the rank and file has been working, under their expired contract. What is your perception of officer morale right now?
So I would say, and this is, to be respectful, but, I can see the challenges of it. Who wouldn't? I'm part of the department too. Having, a fallen officer happen within your career, it's impactful whether you know the individual or not. Excuse me. Having, officers unfortunately being harmed, shot, is also definitely a challenging situation. Yes, I do understand the angst or frustration of the contract. Made my own statement in itself in that. But it is impressive in regards to how our men and women, through all these challenges, still are donning their uniform and going out and accomplishing great work. And for us, it's important for us to lean in of not only seeing our officers, providing the wellness tools, the resources to be able to, I would say, help, because it doesn't eradicate, the stress and strain, both physically and mentally, but being able to, again, see our officers and try to be as supportive as possible through these challenging times, and recognizing and thanking them for still stepping up. I mean, even the day of when that horrendous incident took place, officers coming in to, again, fulfill their duty to protect and serve our city.
As we're talking about the department and officers, the city has struggled to recruit new officers and to fill recruit classes. Why do you think that is?
Well, I will say this much. Again, the levels to this conversation, we got a class that's about to come out in another couple of months. We just had a graduation earlier this year. We have just sworn in, a pretty full class this past couple of days. So the pendulum is swinging. And I don't want to paint a picture that we are, in dire straits. Is it what it was or when I came through? No. And I believe that there was those challenges of, post-pandemic, but also that, there's a lot of different other opportunities in regards to what, our, community offers. But I do see that there is an upswing in those who are coming into the fold. And I will say that we are all our best recruiters. It's sometimes disheartening to hear officers say, I wouldn't want my kid to come into this work. And I say to myself, then who should? When we seal off opportunities, say what you want about what the school resource officer program is to you. That's also another recruiting aspect of engaging in touch points with our youth to say, this is a career also. not the career, because you should be offered many careers opportunities, but those are ways where at some point, we all have a shelf life. There is a changing of the guard, so to speak. Who will fill those roles and how? And so it's, interesting when I hear and talk to different parts of our public, why would anybody want to be a cop? I'm like, why wouldn't they? Noble career, it's a fulfilling career. If you believe it's a job, then yeah, it's not for you. And I always tell to the recruits that come through at every graduation, at minimum, this has to be a career to you. But best, a calling. I'm still here because I love what I do. Has there been ups and downs? Absolutely. I've seen the pendulum swing about a lot of different things in regards to policing. But in the end, the impact that I was able to have a part in, being a part of some wonderful teams, whether when I was working on homicide or being a leader at a district or involved in, again, other engagement work, it feels wonderful to be able to say that you're part of solutions rather than just talking about problems.
All right. So,
We talked a little bit about youth programming before. Do you want to go ahead again, or? Sure, if you did. Well, yeah, we were just talking more about the lack of youth programming, funding cuts. What are the organizations that need to be at the table to start developing new ways for young people and adults especially to get into something productive, in which case you're more likely to not be on the street doing something you shouldn't be, or otherwise causing permanent harm. Can you think of other ways to stimulate those connections? Especially as we go into this time of budget cuts.
I understand. And so, again, I like to make sure I am no czar over answers. I wish I had the magic genie and poof, and things can come out. All I can talk about is my limited experience of seeing what is going on in our city and what's also going on statewide, nationwide. I don't believe in lack. I believe that there is challenges in regards to programming out there. There are still a lot of different robust programs out there, and you get me trying to name them. Somebody's gonna get angry at me in regards to saying you didn't name my place or things like that. I will say that we can still continue to work on collaboration. I believe that there is still a little bit of, this is my lane, this is your lane. When it comes to community work, there is no lane. It's a potluck. We just talked about Thanksgiving earlier before. We bring different dishes to the table to provide a meal. And that's where we really got to take a look at ourselves and say, are we contributing to the solution? Are we, enhancing the problem? And so I will say that one of the bigger challenges that I'm seeing right now is what is it for our youth more towards the evening, later hours? And we talk about teenagers, and I get it, there's curfew, but I call them the in-betweeners. The ones that are not 21, but they ain't 16 either. They don't gotta be in the home. When I was growing up, you had the attic, Club Bermuda, maybe Greg knows about that. 3 floors of partying, downtown, right over the corner where it used to be the Favre Steakhouse and all other places. Where are these places at? You had midnight basketball. There's a lot of different things that was helpful for those in-betweeners. So that's why you're starting to see street takeovers. This is young adults congregating and they're doing things that we don't like, but what is the alternative? What we see, I know it's gonna come up, so I'm gonna hit you at the punch. Food trucks, that's the new party spot for these young ones on Water Street. Unacceptable that that's the place to hang out. But when you look at it from the flip side, what are the opportunities? So when we talk about who can come to the table, the person at the table. That's who can come to the table. And I don't know who that person is. But hopefully this media will get out there and have people thinking about what does that look like in that vacuum? What can be provided from the public in regards to business or our leaders? This is not a police department answer. We have been transparent about data, about situations that we're seeing out here, because we want everyone to know what we're working with and dealing with. And so when we talk about opportunities, there is a challenge right now about how to deal with our in-betweeners and our teenagers. What are those opportunities? If I had the answer, I don't know if I'll be sitting here in this uniform.
Is there, in that vein that you mentioned, the street where people shut down the street and party and all that. I mean, years ago it was cruising, right? And I remember covering City Hall at the time. The Common Council went through and created laws and mechanisms to allow enforcement if you're circling in a certain rate of times. Are there tools that the council could give you to address some of these things that you just don't have?
Well, I know that we have asked for a bystander ordinance. I think that would be helpful in regards to those who want to, there's not a show unless there's an audience. And so being able to deal with that, again, as much as I love enforcement from the standpoint of having impact, I don't want that to be the only tool. And so I do know that we are pretty effective of being proactive and learning from, shortcomings, not only from what we've been doing, but we, again, talk about best practice and seeing, we took a, page out of Kansas City, policing about, dealing with street takeovers. I know there's a number of different other departments, towing cars, citing those who are involved in the actual activities, but we're also working with, Department of Public Works to redesign streets and make it harder for that type of activities to go on. It helps from the impact standpoint. It helps, you impounded somebody's car, you gave them a citation, but what about the next one? And we talk about sustainability, when we talk about, so when we are able to, and we do have a pretty good, robust, proactive engagement to make sure that we, hold those accountable. But in that vacuum now, because it's like, okay, now what's going to be the next newfound idea? And that's where we really got to make sure that everyone who is responsible for these particular type of, engagements or impact are part of this conversation. Milwaukee Police Department will always be part of this conversation while I'm in this chair, but there's more than just me to talk about what the opportunities are and who can do what in regards to, especially we talk about, that's not my wheelhouse. I have kids, one's in college, one's about to graduate. Believe me, I ain't no expert. There's people out there who do this work and has all type of degrees in this. So I just say, these are the things I'm seeing, and these are engagements our young ones are involved in, because I don't see, I can't name a place right now that's after 6 o'clock. That's something that our youth can get involved in. And we all know that video games and, watching TV is not the greatest babysitter.
No.
So.
All right, we have time for just one more, so I'll give it to Chelsea. And
Oh,
then we'll,
wow, a lot of
Ask me
pressure.
about something fun.
That's what we were trying to get to that point. Chelsea.
Hey, wrap it up here, Chelsea.
What's the hottest restaurant in town? No.
Oh my goodness, I will get, it will.
Take that one.
I cannot. Oh,
That could be controversial, right? Yeah. No, I do want to ask this. We've talked about a lot of things.
Yes, ma'am.
We have talked about reckless driving
Yes.
and pursuits and staffing, homicide, guns,
yes,
facial recognition,
yes,
the in-betweeners.
yes.
At the beginning, Greg asked you what your biggest priority was. You said collaboration, community engagement.
Yes.
But if we were to have this conversation 4 years from now, maybe you're updating your resume to apply for a chief job somewhere else or reapply here, I don't know. What would you want to put under your accomplishments? What do you want to be able to look back and say, yes, we got the in-betweeners off the street, or we reduced homicides by this much, or what kind of is your main priority in terms of those issues?
So whenever I think about what a legacy, even though I'm not trying to say that that's my driving force, I look at it from the standpoint where I think about our entire department. We were there. In times of need, in times of support, in times of engagement. It's not by happenstance. It's not it will be good to see you. Intentional, meaningful, consistent, long-standing relationships that you always can count on us to be part of the work, the engagement, the response, and as I talked about earlier, in regards to being proactive. When we are communicative in a point of a level of trust, that you know that there will be a response, there will be action, good things happen out of that. And I say that it really becomes impactful when people feel that they're a part of that solution and work to be a part of that solution, rather than just a transactional, one-sided, tit for tat. When we talk about it in the words of us, we, not you or I, we really made great gain. So I just want to say, upon reflection in regards to that, being somebody who really believes in building and sustaining relationships, if anybody wants to say, if you look back and, what was Chief Norman like? He was there. The good times and bad.
At which restaurant would you be at?
I was going to say,
I have a few, but again, you guys got me on camera.
well, we are glad you're here with us today. We
Thank you,
appreciate you joining us. And
Appreciate
we appreciate
it.
all the work you guys do. We're
Absolutely.
going to wrap up now. We're going to turn off the cameras and we're going to find out what restaurant we're all going to later tonight.
It's almost happy hour.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.